Things are heating up, pushing my resin to the point of flames. Most resin artists use a torch. Watch as I show you how to get these effects from superheating your work. Proceed at your own risk. I have safety equipment and good practices, and I strongly recommend caution on this project. With that, let's get this tutorial started. Hi again, everybody. It's Janet here for Moonkusser Art, and I just got a shipment of resin in. This is from the Epoxy resin store. This is their general use resin. So it has a nice viscosity to it. It's not going to be too thick. It's not going to be too thin. Great to work with. So you might want to try that. It's very reasonably priced. And you can also find a link to their store in the description box, along with a coupon code on your order. If you enter that at checkout, you'll get some money off. I've got my face mask ready. I have my fan up in the window, which I'll have to open the window. It's pouring raining out, but that'll get opened up. And I've got my handy dandy fire extinguisher. I have my cup, and I'm going to start batching up some resin, and we'll get pouring. All the colors that I'll be using in this pour today will be in the description box as well, so make sure you go look there. And if I can get you linked up to any of these products, I'm happy to do that for you guys. I'm going to be pouring on a large canvas today. It's actually not canvas. This is from Ampersand. It is what they call their Claybord. It has a nice smooth finish to it. I did spray paint the sides white, but I'm going to allow the resin to flow over the sides. I have tape on the bottom edge. I like to be a little fussy. I like a clean edge on the back, so I put tape down there to protect that. Let's get this project started. This is a 24 by 36 panel, so it's going to be a pretty good size piece, and I'm excited to do it for you. Stay tuned. I have prepared a batch of my resin. The Epoxy resin store's resin, at least this one, the general use, is a 1-to-1 ratio, and you always measure your resin by volume. So I like to measure my amounts on a scale, and I use water as my standard measurement. That way I get the equal parts of each. I'm laying out the blue here. That's going to be kind of what I use to frame around. So I'm bringing that resin right up to the edge. This will help to reduce any problems with having the resin resist flowing over the edge. 40 ounces should be plenty for a 36 by 24 panel. And I'm going to be doing some tilting on this so it'll flow over nicely. So now I'm just going to start dropping in some of my colors that I've batched up. I'm going to have all my colors in the description box, so check that out. If you're looking for more information on how to batch up your resin, I do have a tutorial on that for beginners, so I'll put a link up here for you guys in the upper right-hand corner. You might want to check that out, add it to your watch list or something. So I'm just filling in the spots. I'm not looking to have it perfectly because I've got a lot more resin that I'm going to be putting down. One of the colors that I'm putting out here, this is the gold, I believe, that I'm putting down. And I do like to make some custom batches of color, so it's got a little bit of Pearl Ex in there. And that is a bronze color that I just dropped in. Now that I have my main colors laid out on the panel, I'm going to go grab my torch and start warming up that surface a little bit. Again, I'm working in a very well ventilated room. I have the window wide open and a fan sitting in there, so if I'm creating any kind of smoke, it's getting drawn right out of my space. Now we'll throw down some of the white. All right. The white is out on the panel, And now I'm going to go back to my torch again. Now this is where things are really going to start getting hot. You're going to see a lot of smoke and a lot of flame. Now remember, I have a lot of safety equipment. I've got my fire extinguishers within arm's reach. I have one right behind me, and I have a total of 4 fire extinguishers in this room. I am ready if I am in a bad situation. So I can't express how important it is to use caution. Be ready. That's the worst case situation, is if you're not ready, and I am ready. So I'm working with a lot of heat. And what's nice about the Epoxy Resin Store's general use epoxy is that it has a very low viscosity. That means it's a very fluid type of resin, and that works well in this situation. By superheating the resin with my torch and using that flame, I'm focusing it on areas where I'm seeing interest is coming through, and I'm just stretching out the pigments across one another. The pigments have different densities, so they're stretching out differently across this piece. So when I put more heat on one spot and thin it out as much as I dare, that's when it's going to stretch even more, and that's when you start getting those lacing effects popping up. Now, if you watch here, I'm going to come around to the other side of the board, and I'm going to hit a spot pretty hard with that torch. Just trying to warm things up again where it looks like the white is just too heavy. And then when you tilt, you can see that's the spot that's going to move more quickly, because by heating it up with the torch, that's where it's really become more fluid and it's stretching out back there. Here it goes. It's all breaking up. You can see how the torch and the movement just stretches those cells open. And then we can just tilt it, and it keeps on stretching. You want to watch your entire piece, because, you know, some spots are going to shift on you, and you don't want to lose some good stuff. And again, here I'm going to really warm up this spot, put a lot of heat down. Stretch it that way. I want to get it to flow over that corner there. And then we'll come back in and heat things up one more time. Now watch how the spot that I really hit the flame on, see how it moves so much quicker? And it's just going to push and float right over top of that white band that was holding it back, almost like a dam. And allowing those to mix in, you're going to get some really pretty effects. One of the other things you have to be careful about is not to stay working in one area. If you stay working in one area too long, you're really going to cook up your resin, and that's, you know, boy, it smells, and, you know, it really is going to create a crepey area on your resin. So keep moving around your board. I keep coming back to this one spot, and again, I'm going to give it some heavy torch, and I'm going to get some nice lacing out of that. But this is where I'm pretty much done in this spot, because it's separating out. You can see those cells forming. There they go. Just like that. But don't keep your torch in one spot. You can see how I keep moving it around and moving to different spots on the board. If you feel like you're overworking an area and you're not done with it, move to another spot, work on something else, and come back to it. Give it a little bit of time to sort of rest, and then you can come back and work at it. So keep going around your board looking for areas that you feel need improvement, and then that way you're not going to have a spot where you really got it so hot. When you're using white, you can actually get the scorch marks will show up in the white. You'll see brown and orangey marks within the white colored resin. So that's kind of a tough one to overcome. You have to end up pouring more color on those spots to compensate for it. Now, if you've been watching and listening along and seeing how this is proceeding, you can see that the colors that I put down first on the board are pretty much staying in those areas. So it's a good practice if you put down your pigmented with color first. The metallics like to float up through resin, especially when they get hot. They'll come up to the surface. So I put those down, but the white and getting that lacing, you definitely want to hold off and pour that at the very last before you start doing the torching and the tilting. Sometimes I keep a little bit back in reserve if I have spots that I need to fill in, but this one was proceeding very nicely, so I was not in any need to put in any more pockets. I'll watch this spot. Here's another one. You're going to see me heat it up. It gets a lot of flame on it, and then you can start to see the color blossom through from underneath. That's because the white is coming up to the surface. It's starting to create cells, and you stretch it out and you can see how it allows that blue down at the bottom to shine through now. And then it's going to start breaking up and pulling into the nice cells and the lacing that we all like to get when we're working with our resin. I have a digital clock in my studio, and I do check that as I'm working with the resin. I found with this resin, the general use epoxy resin from the epoxy resin store, I can work with this for about 45 minutes to an hour, and at this point I'm at 40 minutes, so I know I'm running out of time by moving this around on the board. So I'm going to just do a few more tweaks, and we're going to be going around and touching up the sides here. I want to make sure that I have color all the way around on the edges. I wasn't concerned about it while I was doing the prepping of the board. I didn't want to waste the blue if I didn't have to. So I just stick my fingers right into the puddles that are from what had dripped over the edge. I like to kind of match it up a little bit. The resin is still flowing, so as I tap that on there, it's going to let it move and go all around. I highly recommend investing in some good nitrile gloves if you don't already have them. I make sure that my gloves have no holes in them. I do not want my skin to come in contact with that resin. Some people can end up with some pretty bad allergies to it. So now I've got the heat gun out. I'm just warming up the sides. That's going to help the resin on the top flow over and drag some more color through those areas that I've patted on the puddles. It just makes everything combine and look like it's carried through, but it's actually been a savings of resin for me by doing it in this way. You get a close-up right here, you'll see it flow over. Well, good morning, and I've taken the piece outside. I've needed the sunlight to be able to really get a good view of the scorching. You can see how it looks, has that crepey look in this area. That's the spot that really got the worst hit of it. But it's pretty intense. I'm happy with the effects that I have under there, but that's what it ends up looking like. If it went too far, it would be actually like really almost look like crumpled paper. So having a little bit of creeping is okay. This corner over here, it's let's see if we, yeah, there you go. It's this was a spot that actually caught fire on me, and yeah, I was trying to blow it out through my respirator mask until I finally realized after 3 breaths. And there's a cat hair. Ah! My nemesis. Ah! So all those are good reasons for why it's going to get a clear coat. But I knew that when I started using the torch so much. Inside we go. Somebody asked me to show them how I sign my work. I like to use these Craftsmark pens. They are oil-based, and I just find the corner that I like, and on it goes. I brought the board back inside, and I'm going to put a clear coat on it, and that's going to take away any of the trouble. That cat hair that I have on there is totally going to disappear, and also the scorch marks will be totally gone. I am doing the second layer within a 24-hour period, so there is no need to sand. The resin is still pliable enough that the second layer is going to get good adhesion. So you can do that. If you go beyond 24 hours, I would tell you that you might want to consider doing a light sanding just to scuff it up for that second layer to attach to. But let's get started on that second layer and get that clear coat on. For the clear coat, I only needed 24 ounces of the general use epoxy resin. And I have my handy dandy little plastic tool. It's just a hard piece of plastic with a serrated edge. I believe I got it when I ordered some art resin a long time ago. And I just use that to manipulate it, move it around the board. It spreads it out evenly. And then I take my glove finger, ensure that I have it all the way around the edges. And then if I see any spots with lint, I pick that out. Get that all cleaned up. And let's put this thing to bed for the night. See you in the morning. I turn my cups over when I'm done using them, and then the next day I can peel everything out from inside. It's a good way to check how good my mixing is. The clear coat is finished. It is the next morning, and although the surface is just slightly, I can touch it. It's hard enough for me to touch, but it's still slightly soft. It's been, I think it's been about 16 hours. But it's got a real nice, smooth finish. See how that light doesn't waver? Let me get it full on here. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of surface that I want to get. So it is perfection. And over here is that corner that I scorched. And yesterday when I put the camera over here and used the light, there was all kinds of weeble wobbles and crepey looking stuff happening there, but that's all gone from the clear coat. So I knew when I was doing the heavy scorching that I was going to get that effect. And I was okay with it because, you know, you got to pay if you want to play, as they say. So here's this beautiful piece with that beautiful, look at that. See how the light, it doesn't wobble. That's because the whole surface is fine and shiny. Loving it. Here's that area that had that crepey stuff going because I did a heavy torch here. Same thing. Let's get the light on it. Wow! All cleaned up. All cleaned up. So, if you want to get a lot of lacing and results like that, that's how you go about it. Make some flames. Do it carefully. Do it in a well-ventilated space. Wear a respirator for protection. And have your fire extinguisher close by. I do hope that you enjoy this video and learn some new things about working with resin. If you're new to resin, this is a pretty intense way of getting effects, so you might want to build up to it. I've also dropped a couple of links to some of my other videos that I hope you'll enjoy watching and be able to learn something from those as well. I'd like to thank you all for watching today. Please come back and visit the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell so that you get your notifications when I drop a new video. And remember, It's art. It's supposed to be fun. Go out, create, and enjoy. Thanks again. See you next time at Moonkusser Art.